In a glittering city bank, a routine transaction explodes into a storm of injustice when a white teller rips up the hide of a black CEO, accusing him of fraud while his billion-dollar partners look on. Humiliation turns to resistance as silence, recording phones, and piercing dialogue expose systemic racism, the CEO's dignity clashing with arrogance and denial. Until 7 minutes later, the deal collapses in front of the world. The bank's reputation crumbles, and poetic justice unfolds as silence becomes the sharpest weapon, proving that respect cannot be bought and that giants can fall in moments. The revolving glass doors of Granite Bank spun with a hiss, polished so clean that Malik Johnson could almost see his reflection staring back broad-shouldered. Tailored navy suit, eyes steady with purpose. Today wasn't just another business errand. Today was history in motion. A $10 billion deal that would seal his company's global legacy. Yet the moment he stepped into the marbled lobby, the air shifted, conversations dulled, eyes trailed, whispers floated. Who's he with? Security? No, he's alone. Malik adjusted his tie and walked to the executive counter. Behind it stood Claire Whitmore, blonde bun, red lips, a smile painted so tightly it could slice glass. Yes, her tone carried the weight of practiced superiority. I'm here for the Granite Executive Suite, Malik replied. Offering his ID across the counter, Claire took it between two fingers as though it might stain her nails. She glanced at it, then at Malik, then back again. A pause stretched into discomfort. Is this yours? She asked, voice loud enough for others nearby to hear. Yes, Malik answered evenly. That's me, Malik Johnson, CEO of Horizon Global. Her lip curled almost imperceptibly. Funny we don't usually get your kind walking in here. Unescorted. Malik's jaw tightened. Excuse me? But Claire didn't excuse herself. Instead, she held his ID up to the fluorescent light, squinting theatrically, then slowly, deliberately tore it down the middle. The rip sliced through the air louder than it should have. The lobby froze. Even the fountains seemed to hush. Malik's voice came out low, steady. You just destroyed government property. Claire smiled, slipping the torn pieces into the trash. If it was real, sir, maybe I'd be worried. The security guard shifted, but made no move. He watched, hands clasped behind his back, as if waiting for Malik to make trouble. Malik inhaled deeply, every muscle straining to remain composed. Call your manager. I don't think that's necessary, Claire said sweetly. Why don't you step aside before you embarrass yourself? The words landed heavier than the torn ID. Malik scanned the room, tellers avoiding his gaze, customers pretending to scroll on phones, the guard standing tall but inert. Silence was complicity, and the silence here was deafening. Malik leaned in, voice low but razor-sharp. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Claire's smirk widened. I know exactly what I've done. I've kept the wrong people out of places they don't belong. The fountain resumed its steady trickle, but to Malik it sounded like a ticking clock. A countdown. Something bigger was coming. And so he straightened, eyes steady, voice calm. Then let's see who really belongs here. The lobby still hummed with unease, though no one dared speak. Malik's ID lay in the trash, its torn halves buried beneath crumpled deposit slips and discarded receipts. Malik stood tall, but inside, a slow burn coiled in his chest. He locked eyes with Claire. Call your manager, now. Claire tilted her head, lips curved with false pity. Sir, lower your voice. You're disturbing our clients. I said nothing above a whisper, Malik replied calmly. The only disturbance is your behavior. Her painted smile faltered for a second, before reforming. Security, she called, though the guard was already at her side. The guard's tone was low, rehearsed. Sir, if you don't comply, I'll have to ask you to step away. Malik turned slowly toward him. Step away from what? My own business. The guard's jaw flexed, but his hands stayed still. He wasn't eager for escalation, just waiting for an excuse. Claire raised her voice louder. Enough for the lobby to hear. This man is refusing to cooperate. He's getting aggressive. Heads turned. Customers leaned, whispering like gossiping shadows. Malik could see it in their eyes. Some curious, some afraid, some already convinced of guilt. He spoke firmly, for all to hear. Aggressive. I stood here, presented my ID, and you tore it up. Where exactly is the aggression? No answer. Just silence, the heavy, suffocating kind. Malik scanned the faces. A middle-aged teller glancing away. A suited man pretending to check his phone. An elderly woman frowning but staying seated. Everyone saw. No one intervened. The narration seemed to whisper around him. Silence is not neutrality. Silence is permission. Malik pulled out his phone, dialing quickly. Tanya's voice came through, crisp and alert. Tanya, bring the Horizon contract folder, now. Granite Bank branch, main lobby. On my way, she said without hesitation. Claire scoffed, bringing backup, huh? That won't change the fact that you don't belong here. Malik fixed his gaze on her. I don't need backup. I need witnesses. For a moment, the smile dropped from her face, but she quickly regained it, lifting her chin. Why don't you just admit it? She said, tone dripping. You probably forged that ID. People try it all the time. The words hit harder than the rip of paper. Malik's throat tightened not with fear, but with the weight of history echoing through her accusation. Fraud, criminal, unworthy. He spoke softly, each word deliberate. I built a company worth more than the marble under your feet, and yet, to you, I'm just another man you can dismiss. Claire leaned across the counter, whispering just loud enough for him to hear. Exactly. Malik froze, not from shock but from recognition. This wasn't ignorance. It was intention. The guard shifted again, uneasy. Ma'am, maybe no. Claire cut him off sharply. We follow protocol. He can wait until I verify. Verify what? Malik asked. His tone was measured, but steel threaded through it. You destroyed my identification. What more do you need? Claire's eyes flickered with a strange satisfaction. She wasn't just she was enjoying the spectacle. The crowd's whispers thickened. Why doesn't he just leave? Maybe she's right. Why cause trouble? But Malik didn't move. His stillness was defiance. Minutes dragged, but finally, Tanya's heels clicked against the marble floor. She strode, in sharp suit, briefcase in hand, eyes blazing. Her presence cut through the murmur. Mr. Johnson, she said loudly, deliberately, here are the Horizon Global contracts for the Granite Bank deal. The words hung like a bell ringing in the cathedral of silence. Claire's smile twitched. Oh, contracts, are they? Let me see those. Tanya hesitated, glancing at Malik. He gave a slight nod. She placed the heavy folder on the counter. Claire flipped it open, skimming without understanding. Then she looked up with mock concern. These could be fake. How do I know you didn't just print these at home? Gasps flickered through the crowd. Tanya's voice cracked with disbelief. Are you serious? These are legal documents with your bank's letterhead signed by your own executives. But Claire only shrugged. Forgers get cleverer every day. Malik's chest rose with a slow, heavy breath. He didn't shout. He didn't move. He only said, your arrogance will cost you more than you can afford. Claire smirked. Is that a threat? No. Malik's voice cut through the lobby like a blade. It's a promise. And with that, silence deepened thicker than before, sharper, heavier, an echo not of words, but of complicity. The echo of silence. The glass door to the back offices opened, and a tall man in a gray suit walked briskly into the lobby. His silver tie shimmered under the light, and his hair was slicked back with precision. Richard Hale, he announced, voice smooth as silk. Branch manager. Malik turned, shoulders squared, but Richard spoke first, flashing a broad smile. Mr. Johnson, isn't it? I'm so sorry for this little mix-up. Claire's lips twitched into relief. She stepped back as though protected by his presence. Malik's tone was calm but sharp. Mix-up. Your teller tore up my ID and accused me of fraud. That isn't a mix-up. That's sabotage. Richard chuckled softly, hands raised in practiced diplomacy. Let's not be so dramatic. I'm sure Miss Whitmore was just following protocol. Tanya stepped forward, voice firm. Protocol does not include destroying identification. Richard glanced at her, as though swatting away a fly. And you are his assistant, Tanya Reeves. And I was the one who delivered the contract documents your teller claimed were fake. Richard's eyes flickered to the thick folder on the counter. He tapped it with a manicured finger. Ah yes, these, quite impressive looking, I'll admit. Malik's gaze hardened. They are binding agreements, signed by your superiors. Richard leaned closer, lowering his voice into something conspiratorial. Mr. Johnson, I'm sure you're a very accomplished man, but perhaps you should understand this is a very exclusive institution. We expect a certain decorum. Malik didn't flinch. Decorum. I walked in respectfully, handed my ID, and was treated like a criminal. Richard's smile never wavered. Tone, Mr. Johnson. It's often not what you say, but how you say it. The words hung heavy. Malik recognized the tactic instantly. Blame shifted. Victim recast as aggressor. Abuse softened into etiquette. Tanya snapped. He's being calm. You're the ones escalating. Richard turned to her again, smile thinning. Miss Reeves, I suggest you mind your tone as well. This is a bank, not a protest rally. Claire stifled a laugh, covering it with a cough. Malik caught it. Richard pretended not to. Malik straightened, voice low. You want me to apologize? Richard clasped his hands behind his back, expression serene. I want to move past this misunderstanding. If you acknowledge that Miss Whitmore was doing her job, we can resume business as intended. Tanya gasped. You want him to apologize? After you ripped up his ID? After you implied he forged documents? Richard sighed, feigning patience. Let's not exaggerate, Miss Reeves. These things happened. Mistakes are made. Malik stared into Richard's eyes. Beneath the trained corporate smile, he saw something darker. Not error, not accident, choice. He spoke with deliberate precision. A $10 billion contract is upstairs waiting to be signed, and you're telling me your institution can't tell the difference between protocol and prejudice. Richard's jaw tightened, though his smile remained. Business will proceed. Once this unpleasantness is resolved, Malik repeated. Yes. Richard's eyes glimmered coldly. An apology goes a long way. Silence stretched again. Customers shifted uncomfortably. The security guard looked away. Claire smirked openly now, her confidence restored by her manager's shield. Malik exhaled slowly. He could feel Tanya's fury at his side, could hear the thrum of blood in his own ears, but his voice, when it came, was controlled. You want me to bend? Richard's smile sharpened. I want you to be reasonable. Malik met his gaze without blinking. Reasonable is not bending to bigotry. Richard said nothing. His smile held, but the silence betrayed the crack beneath it. And in that silence, Malik understood. They weren't just gatekeepers. They were gamblers, betting that his dignity would cost less than their arrogance. He decided, then, to let them play their hand. Tanya pushed the thick folder closer across the marble counter. The contracts bore Horizon Global's seal, signed by Granite Bank's very own executives. Here, she said, voice trembling with anger. If you want verification, verify your own signatures. Claire didn't reach for the papers. Instead, she leaned back, folding her arms smugly. Oh, I've seen clever fakes before. Tanya's eyes widened. This isn't a fakir deal. Your bank will profit more from this than any in your history. Richard placed a calm hand on the folder, as though he were a judge weighing evidence. Miss Reeves, no one is questioning that these look legitimate, but perception matters. Malik's eyes narrowed. Perception. Richard nodded gravely. Yes, my teller perceived something off. Suspicion is part of security. Surely you understand. Malik's voice deepened. Suspicion based on what? My skin, my presence, my silence while she ripped my ID. Richard's smile faltered just slightly. Claire quickly interjected. You were evasive. You didn't answer my questions. You never asked a single question. Malik shot back, her cheeks flushed. But she pressed forward. You were defensive. You looked angry. That's suspicious enough. The security guard shifted uneasily, scratching his neck. Tanya turned to him, eyes blazing. You saw everything. Are you really going to stand here and pretend this was justified? The guard's lips parted, but no sound came. His gaze flicked to Richard, then dropped. Silence again. Tanya's voice cracked with fury. Unbelievable. All of you. Richard sighed, adopting the tone of weary patience. Let's not escalate. Mr. Johnson, why don't we reschedule this meeting? Perhaps tomorrow, when things are calmer. Malik stared at him, unflinching. You want me to walk out of here humiliated? You think dignity is something I can reschedule? Richard tapped the folder again, a lawyerly gesture. Business requires compromise. Tanya snapped. This isn't compromise, it's corruption. Richard ignored her, his eyes fixed on Malik. The truth is, Mr. Johnson, we hold the cards here. If Granite chooses not to proceed, there are other banks eager to take your business. Claire's smirk widened at those words, like a child watching her bully win the playground. Malik's silence stretched. He let Richard's words echo through the lobby, through the ears of every silent bystander pretending not to watch. Finally, he said softly, Are you certain about that? Richard chuckled, mistaking restraint for weakness. Quite certain. Unless, of course, you'd like to reconsider your approach. Tanya gripped Malik's arm. Don't, she whispered fiercely. Don't let them break you. Malik's jaw tightened. For the first time, his composure threatened to crack not with rage, but with weariness. How many times had he walked into rooms like this? How many times had power dressed itself as professionalism and demanded he kneel? He looked at Tanya. Her eyes burned with defiance, but her voice dropped into urgency. Remember who you are. They need you more than you need them. Richard noticed the whisper, his smile cooling. Careful, he said. We wouldn't want things to become irreparable. Malik finally spoke, voice deliberate and measured. You're right about one thing, Richard. Richard asked smoothly. Yes. Malik's eyes glinted with controlled fire. Things will become irreparable. Richard frowned slightly, unsure if he'd just lost ground. Claire blinked, confused at Malik's sudden calm. Tanya squeezed his arm once more, recognition dawning in her eyes. Malik wasn't conceding. He was calculating. The breaking point wasn't his, it was theirs. The executive conference room on Granite Bank's top floor gleamed with crystal water pitchers, polished oak tables, and panoramic views of the skyline. But the atmosphere was anything but calm. Two men sat at the head of the table, their tempers simmering. Khalid Al-Mansour, the Dubai investor, drummed his fingers impatiently. Beside him, Daniel Wang, representing a Singaporean conglomerate, checked his watch for the third time. It's been 40 minutes, Khalid said sharply. Where is Mr. Johnson? A junior Granite assistant stammered. I believe he's on his way, sir. Believe. Wang's voice cut like a blade. Do you know, or do you guess? The assistant paled, fumbling with his notepad. I'll check again. As the door closed behind him, Khalid muttered. Unacceptable. We don't wait for anyone, certainly not when our schedules are this tight. Wang leaned back, exhaling slowly. Malik is a man of precision. If he is late, something is wrong. Khalid frowned. Wrong with him, or wrong with them? The question hung in the air. Downstairs, Malik's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at the screen. Khalid Al-Mansour, incoming call, he answered, voice steady. Khalid. The voice on the other end was sharp with irritation. Malik, where are you? We have been waiting nearly an hour. Malik glanced at Claire and Richard, both watching him like hawks. He turned slightly, speaking clearly. I'm downstairs in your bank's lobby, being detained. Silence. Then Khalid's voice rose with outrage. Detained? By who? By your teller? By your manager? They claim I don't belong here. On speakerphone, Wang's voice cut in, cold and clipped. Did I hear that correctly? Granite Bank is detaining the lead partner of this deal. The lobby seemed to freeze again. Richard's smile faltered for the first time. Claire's smirk drained into uncertainty. Customers shifted, leaning in closer now, unable to pretend they weren't listening. Khalid's voice thundered through the phone. Put me on with your manager. Now. Malik handed the phone toward Richard. For you? Richard hesitated, then took it, pasting his smile back on. Mr. Al-Mansour, this is Richard Hale, branch manager. There seems to be silence. Khalid snapped. Do you have any idea who you are speaking to? Malik Johnson represents a consortium that will pour $10 billion into your institution, and you, his voice cracked like thunder. You treat him like a criminal. Richard swallowed, his composure wavering. Sir, with respect, there was confusion. Protocol. Wang's voice cut in. I see. Your protocol is humiliation. Claire shrank behind the counter, suddenly desperate to be invisible. Khalid's fury spilled into every corner of the lobby. Listen carefully, Mr. Hale. If Malik Johnson is not escorted into that conference room in the next 5 minutes, the contract is off. And when it is off, your bank will lose not only our money, but its reputation across 3 continents. Richard tried to respond, but Khalid had already ended the call. The phone beeped with finality. Richard's smile collapsed. He turned to Malik, face pale. Mr. Johnson, of course, we can rectify this. Please, allow me to escort you upstairs personally. Malik didn't move. His voice was low, measured. Now you remember my name. Tanya's lips curled into the faintest smile. The narration whispered, like a drumbeat in the silence. Arrogance blinds the powerful until money opens their eyes. Richard gestured nervously toward the elevators. Shall we? But Malik stayed still, his calm heavier than thunder. He was no longer the one waiting. Now, Granite Bank was. The sharp chime of the executive elevator cut through the marble silence. Heads turned as the golden doors slid open. Out stepped Khalid Al-Mansour in his tailored thobe and dark blazer, his stride commanding, eyes blazing with fury. Beside him, Daniel Wang adjusted his cufflinks with surgical precision, his calmness more terrifying than Khalid's fire. 2 Granite executives trailed nervously behind, whispering apologies that fell flat. The entire lobby seemed to shrink as the men approached. Khalid's voice boomed. "Where is she?" Claire flinched. "Esther." He pointed directly at her, his hand trembling with rage. "You, the one who destroyed Mr. Johnson's identification." Claire's lips parted, scrambling for defense. I was only silence." Khalid barked. His voice echoed so loudly even the fountain seemed to pause mid-trickle. Daniel stepped forward, his tone quieter but sharper. "Do you realize what you've done? You've insulted the very man carrying the contract your bank has begged us to sign." Richard hurried forward, hands raised in desperate diplomacy. "Gentlemen, please, there's no need for theatrics. It was a misunderstanding. Nothing more. Misunderstanding." Khalid roared. He slammed his palm on the counter, the sound cracking like a whip. Customers jumped in their seats. "You humiliated him. In front of witnesses. In front of me." Claire stammered. "I didn't know." Daniel cut in, eyes narrowing. "You didn't know. You didn't care. You looked at his skin and decided who he could and could not be." The words sliced through the lobby. No one dared move. Richard's voice cracked as he tried to salvage the scene. "Mr. Wong, Mr. Al-Mansour, I assure you, Granite Bank values every client equally. This situation is an anomaly." Tanya's voice rang out, clear and strong. "An anomaly, or a pattern." Every head turned toward her. She held her phone up, screen glowing. "Because I've been recording every word, every accusation, every silence." Claire's face drained of color. Richard froze. Tanya continued, her voice steady. "And when the world sees a black CEO accused of fraud while trying to finalize a $10 billion deal, let's see what they call it." The security guard's eyes darted nervously to Richard. He muttered, "She's been recording the whole time, sir." Richard's mask cracked, his voice sharpening. "You can't release that." Malik finally spoke. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "Can't, or shouldn't." The calmness chilled the room more than shouting ever could. He stepped forward, picking the torn halves of his ID from the trash and placing them gently on the counter. "Here is your proof," Malik said quietly. "Proof of who I am, and proof of what you've done." Khalid jabbed a finger at Richard. "This man is 10 times the leader you'll ever be, and you treated him like dirt." Daniel's voice dropped into an icy whisper. "If Horizon cancels this deal, your bank will not recover. Not today, not in 10 years. The audience of bystanders no longer pretended disinterest. Phones appeared, cameras lifted. Customers filmed the scene openly, murmuring, their faces alive with indignation and disbelief. Claire shrank under the weight of eyes on her. Her smirk was gone, replaced by trembling lips. I was only following." Richard cut her off, panic breaking through his polished, quiet Claire. But it was too late. The performance of superiority had unraveled. The spectacle was now theirs. Malik turned to Tanya. "Save the recording. Don't release it." "Not yet." Tanya nodded, clutching her phone like a sword. Malik's gaze swept across Richard, Claire, and the watching crowd. His voice was low, deliberate, unshakable. "You thought I was powerless here, that my silence meant surrender. But my silence was patience." He let the words hang, the weight of them pressing against marble walls and glass doors. "And now," Malik continued, "your silence will condemn you." The lobby erupted not with applause, but with whispers and gasps, the collective realization that the balance of power had shifted, for the first time since Malik entered Granite Bank. Claire lowered her eyes. Richard's hands trembled, and Tanya, standing tall beside him, whispered so only he could hear, "Now the clock starts ticking." The lobby still buzzed with hushed murmurs when Malik glanced at his watch. The second hand ticked steadily. 7 minutes, he said softly. Richard frowned. "What are you talking about?" Malik's tone was calm, surgical. 7 minutes is all it will take for your empire to start crumbling." Daniel Wong checked his phone. "He's not exaggerating." Richard swallowed, throat dry. "Now hold on. This isn't necessary. We can issue a formal apology, restore the contract, provide additional incentives." Malik raised his hand, silencing him. "You can't buy dignity back once you've destroyed it," Claire whispered, almost pleading. I didn't mean," Khalid snapped. "You meant every second of it. I saw it in your eyes." Malik's gaze locked on Claire. "You weren't just rude. You weaponized your authority. You tried to erase me. But what you didn't know," he pulled his phone from his pocket, screen lighting up, "is that I don't walk into rooms unprepared." He typed quickly, then pressed send. A soft whoosh of an email leaving filled the silence more than shouting ever could. Richard panicked. What did you just do? Daniel folded his arms. He sent the cancellation. Claire gasped. Cancelled. The whole deal. Khalid's voice boomed across the lobby. $10 billion gone because of her arrogance and your cowardice. Richard's face turned ashen. His hand shook as he reached for his phone, dialing frantically. Let me fix this. Malik's voice cut like steel. You can't fix what's already been exposed. Tanya stepped forward, her phone still recording, and in about 5 minutes, she checked her screen. Every major outlet will know exactly why the deal collapsed. Claire's knees buckled. You can't do this. You'll ruin us. Malik's jaw tightened. Did you think about ruining me when you tore up my eye, when you laughed in my face? Did you think about the security guard who treated me like a criminal? Or Tanya, who has to record injustice just to be believed? No one answered. The seconds ticked louder in the silence. Customers whispered, did he say 10 billion? She tore up his ID. This is going viral. Richard's phone rang. He answered in a frenzy. Yes, I'm aware. No, don't pull the funds yet. I'll explain. His voice cracked. Just give me time, Khalid sneered. Your time ran out the moment you chose silence over justice. Malik's eyes returned to his watch. 3 minutes. Richard's composure shattered. He leaned forward, begging, Mr. Johnson, please, don't do this. We can resolve it privately. We'll issue statements, compensation, promotions, whatever you want. Malik shook his head. What I want, he said slowly, is respect. And that cannot be bought. Claire's voice rose, hysterical. You're destroying innocent jobs. Do you know how many people depend on this bank? Tanya's reply was sharp. Do you know how many people of color get destroyed by banks like this every single day? Their loans denied, their accounts flagged, their dignity questioned. Don't you dare pretend to care about jobs now. The crowd murmured in agreement. Richard's voice cracked into a shout. You're making a mistake. Malik's gaze was steady. No, you did. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and nodded. 1 minute. Richard looked like a man drowning, clutching for anything. I'll fire her. He shoved Claire forward. Is that what you want? She's gone. Effective immediately. Claire froze. Wahishade. You can't. But Malik only tilted his head. It was never about one teller. It was about the culture you allowed, the silence you embraced. Richard's phone buzzed again. He answered, face straining of color. No, please. Just listen. We can renegotiate. Hello. The line went dead. Malik's watch ticked to the final second. 7 minutes, he whispered, and in that silence, Richard's phone erupted with notifications, mails, news alerts, collapsing stock figures. Granite Bank's name flooded social media, already trending. Hashtag RiptID, hashtag banking while black, hashtag granitefall. The empire had begun to crumble. Malik turned away, Tanya at his side, Khalid and Daniel flanking him like silent guardians. He did not raise his voice. He did not gloat. He simply said, justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just waits 7 minutes. And with that, he walked out of Granite Bank, leaving Richard and Claire trembling in the ruins of their arrogance. The next morning, Granite Bank's polished skyscraper no longer gleamed with confidence. Instead, its mirrored glass reflected only chaos. News vans lined the street. Reporters swarmed the lobby, cameras flashing as they shouted questions. Is it true the CEO's ID was ripped up? Why was the $10 billion deal cancelled? Is Granite Bank facing discrimination lawsuits? Inside, staff huddled in corners, whispering in disbelief. Screens on the walls streamed live coverage, stock prices plummeting. Headlines screaming, bank's $10 billion deal collapses in racism scandal. CEO humiliated, global partners walk away. Hashtag Granitefall trending worldwide. Richard sat in his office, pale, his tie loosened, his desk covered in unanswered calls and urgent memos. The phone rang endlessly, but he could no longer summon the energy to answer. His empire was crumbling, not from competitors, not from the market, but from 7 minutes of arrogance. Claire, meanwhile, sat in HR with swollen eyes. Her employment had been terminated overnight. Her name already plastered across social media as the teller who ripped the CEO's ID. She muttered to herself, rocking slightly. I didn't know, but no one was listening anymore. Across town, Malik stood before the mirrored facade of his own headquarters. Horizon Capital's logo glistened in gold above the doors. Tanya joined him, phone still buzzing with notifications. You're everywhere, she said. Interviews, op-eds, they're calling it the 7-minute fall. Malek's lips curved slightly, though his eyes remained steady. It was never about the fall, it was about the silence. Tanya tilted her head. Silence. He gestured toward the building's glass, where their reflections stood tall side by side. For too long, silence has been their weapon. People like Claire humiliate us. People like Richard excuse it. And the world moves on because we stay silent. He paused, his gaze steady on the reflection. But yesterday, silence became ours. We didn't shout. We didn't beg. We waited. And in 7 minutes, their silence condemned them. Tanya exhaled, her chest heavy with both pain and pride. Feels like justice. Poetic justice, Malek corrected softly. The kind that doesn't need revenge, just truth. His phone buzzed again, messages from Khalid and Daniel, both reaffirming support, both pledging new opportunities that dwarfed Granite's lost deal. The network Malek had built had proven stronger than the system that tried to dismiss him. Tanya asked quietly, "Do you regret it?" Canceling. Malik shook his head. "You don't build a future on rotten foundations. 10 billion means nothing if dignity costs more." They stood in silence, watching their reflections in the towering glass. For the first time, Malik didn't see himself diminished or questioned. He saw a black CEO who had faced arrogance head-on and left unbroken. Meanwhile, across the city, Richard faced his board in a tense emergency meeting. Voices rose. "You've destroyed shareholder confidence. Our international partners are gone. Resign, Richard." He tried to defend himself, sweating under the fluorescent lights. "It was a misunderstanding. We can rebuild." But the board had already decided. The vote was unanimous. By the end of the day, Richard was escorted from the building, his legacy shattered, his name forever linked to scandal. Claire's name would be forgotten in time, but Malek's would not. His silence had spoken louder than her scorn. As dusk fell, Malek sat in his office with Tanya. The city lights flickered against the horizon, a symbol of resilience. Tanya broke the quiet. "What happens next?" Malek leaned back, eyes still on the glass skyline. "Next, we build, not just wealth, not just deals, but a world where the next man who looks like me doesn't have to prove he belongs." Tanya smiled faintly. "And if Granite Bank survives," Malek's voice was calm, almost merciful, "then let them. Their survival will be a reminder. Every time they pass that mirror lobby, they'll see their reflection and remember who shattered it." He raised his glass of water, a silent toast. To patience, to silence, to justice. Tanya clinked hers against his. And to the fall of giants. The office fell quiet again. But this time the silence was not heavy. It was powerful. It was victory. And on the mirrored glass of Horizon Capital's tower, Malek's reflection stood tall, unshaken, immortalized by truth.